So without further ado, it is my incredible honor to introduce the United Conservative Party Whip, MLA Shane Getson.
Sure you got the right guy. Yeah, that's pretty darn humbling. So there's an old saying, actually I heard it here recently, it was at okay, we'll do that. I tend to...
Now the irony of that is I said something like this will happen as soon as I get up here. And here we are.
So let's get that fixed and going. So most recently I heard a comment being made, and I kind of made it and I heard it and I thought it was pretty decent, and it's a simple thing: you can't fake authenticity. And that man, Bouchard, one of the most authentic, genuine people that I have had the privilege of. Jennifer Johnson, she's in the crowd tonight. Got to know this lady over the last year after sign-in, and obviously she's a member. We're looking forward to making a caucus decision here really quick.
Here, here.
Miles McDougall, again, another gentleman, just a rock star down this area, first-time politician, folks stepping in out of their normal comfort zone to step up and do what's right for the community, for the province, for all the right reasons. Again, another gentleman I've got to know here, and he's knocking it out of the park. And don't let the suit and tie fool you. I just came from the Indian Consulate General's retirement, essentially. He's stepping out, but I normally am from God's country, and it's not because it's the prettiest location. There's a lot of reasons why I started saying that, and basically Albertans had been beaten up for a while. You had a number of years with Trudeau and the NDP government in place, the dynamic duo of something that rhymes with something else. But Albertans kind of kept their heads down for a while, and one of the things where I stepped out of my comfort zone and into politics, part of my consulting business as well, was simply because people were getting beaten up. And that wasn't the province that I remembered. Alberta literally is Texas North, where we're the strong and free province. Everybody knows the saying about Texas, well, that stands for Alberta too. You don't mess with Alberta. And getting encouraged by seeing this many folks come out in Calgary here tonight is pretty darn impressive. So the reason why I call it God's country is simply that. The folks, the people that I had the honor and the privilege that asked me to step up and run, that I could try to help out. And that was literally what it was. Oh, that, and I got a couple other things. The lake, Lac Ste, there's a pilgrimage that takes place there every year in the native tongue, the native language in the area. It's actually God's lake. And then we had the Pope come out and bless it, so now I'm absolutely incorrigible when I'm talking about God's country. So unless any other constituency can get the Pope to bless their constituency, I've got an inside track on you all. So my background, I was literally a farm kid. Grew up out by Wildwood in that area. We had a mixed farming operation, and grew up during the recession. So it was stealing from the dog to feed the cat. Had a number of things. There was the cow-calf operation. We were very innovative, trying to do everything we could. But with the rates and the things going on out there, there was tons of marital pressures and all the other things that went with that. And I had two younger brothers. And we literally, I'll share this with you folks because, again, the suit and tie thing. When my folks had separated and had all these troubles, I stuck on the farm. And I took care of my younger brothers. And my father kind of fell apart a little bit. There was, tons of things going on, and literally there was days where I knew how to make bannock. So that's what I would do, is I would whip up a batch of bannock so we could take stuff to school and do that. And it's not to feel sad. There was, a ton of things going on, but when we get in that house, and when Conservatives get painted with a brush, that we don't know what it's like, where you have never struggled. Oh, everything's ever become easy to you. All I know is I worked every single friggin' day of my life to watch out for my brothers, to try to do the best I could for my family. And when I went and worked construction, the first job I took at 17 was literally went to the city into Edmonton, and I had $17 in my pocket at the time. And I ended up sleeping the first night on a park bench, and I wanted to get off the farm to get some experience. And I worked for this small patch paving company. And the foreman, I was walking, from the place I was staying, found a place to stay, but walking to work, and then the foreman found out this farm kid was literally walking, 3, 4, 5 miles, whatever it was, to get to the job site every morning. So he picked me up, and I gave him so much money, and then the owner of the company was up from Full Air, actually, and he was a farm kid as well, and he finally started asking me some things, and then he helped me out, and I've never taken a loan, never done those type of things. It was always instilled in me, work what you don't ask for help, you don't ask for any of that, you just work, you work hard and you do that, and you be proud of who you are. So he noticed I didn't have work boots, I had cowboy boots. And he goes, those aren't steel-toed, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna drop anything on my feet. And so he gave me some money so I could go get some work boots and, moreover, be WCB compliant. But, business owner, right? So I worked my way through that company, and when I went to go to college, the owner came up and said, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm going off to school. Like, I really appreciate working for you, Rick, and I, really thank you for everything. He goes, well, I was going to make you my paving foreman. Well, I said, well, thank you, but I've got bigger aspirations. So lo and behold, I went to college. He gave me my first job coming back, and it was as an estimator. And he did this little trick. It was the back office and the front office. So literally he walked me past the back office, and he goes, you're in the front office now. He says, there's things in the business that the guys that you used to work with on the tools are never going to be able to see. He says, you have to understand there's that bit of that separation. You still work with folks, you still do all those things, but there's a bit of a separation, like you're going to be on the inside of that business. And that was a little bit of a life lesson too. When we're in caucus and when we're in cabinet, there's caucus and cabinet confidence. There's things that we can do and say behind the wire, so to speak, that you have to have that freedom of those conversations that we can't share with the general public. Now, are we bad communicators? Yeah. We try. But I kind of put it to folks that there's this air war going on and we're not it. Like in any theater of operation since World War II, you need top cover, you need air superiority. We don't have that. Conservative movements do not have that. We literally have medias against us, social medias against us, we have algorithms taking place. Heck, we even got this Bill C-11 thing that stops you and I from talking to each other and me sharing the news with you or anyone else. So you want to talk about an uphill battle. So in my areas, it's the same thing. It's grassroots. The biggest thing that we can do is what you folks are doing here tonight. And God bless you, because it's what matters to you. It's having that connection so that when we stand up there as legislators in that office, when we're holding up and we're representing you, that we can say, yeah, I spoke to X number of people. Here's a story that I can articulate. Here's what's going on in our area. If we were to simply do the play-by-play and speak up in those caucus meetings or in those cabinet rooms or even in the House, and if it was everything that was driven by CBC, XYZ, and sometimes Y, good luck. So don't underestimate what you folks are doing here tonight to actually get off the couch from home, to leave whatever favorite movie is, and to give a damn about your province and your country. So I want you to give yourself a good round of applause. So Alberta's strong and free, and it's only strong and free because of the folks in this room. Every time you get chipped away, every time you get pushed back, they're taking a little piece. They're trying to take a piece out of you. But Albertans, we've got some grit. There is no question. And don't be afraid to talk about the good things we have. Energy. The world is a dark, cold place without energy. And when you have policy that starts to be predicated in pixie tails and fairy dust, and if you climb the occasional CN tower or go on former client's house and start stacking up solar panels, and you want to have this hypocrisy, well, all we got to do is look back 3 weeks ago when winter caught up with us. And I'm not against solar energy. I am not against wind energy. I've worked on those projects. Like when I was at Enbridge, we had a big solar panel farm down in Sarnia. I was on the Montana tie line that brought in, our tie line with Montana from Great Falls up to Lethbridge. We threw in 350 windmills. Not against it. But what I am against is thinking it's a silver bullet. What I am against is people pushing policy that have no technical background or wherewithal. What I am against is somebody from down east telling us what the hell we do over west. I'm sitting in the dark at home, fuming, as I see this alert go out, because I'm an individual that worked in that industry and understands some of the integration between it. And I've got my, 15-year-old daughter sitting at the table doing her homework in the dark, basically. We've got a little light sitting there and I've got the fireplace going and everything else, and I'm literally fuming. Energy is our business. We are the superpower when it comes to energy in our country. And when I'm talking to folks over in Germany and elsewhere, and I'll digress a little bit in that trip, and I'll give you some hope here, because, you know, we've got to tell our story. If we don't tell our story, no one else is going to do it for you. So I'm sitting at home, and I know that we're sitting on the 4th largest known oil reserve in the planet. We're sitting over 223 trillion tons or cubic feet of gas. We're sitting on 80% of the actual coal, good thermal coal, metallurgical coal sitting in the entire country. We've got all of this at our disposal, and I'm having to flick the switch. And just down the road from me, we shut down 3 power generating plants that were in my area forever. Yeah. And we can still export coal around the world, and we still know that down east, apparently if you burn diesel fuel, heating oil, there's no carbon issues with that. But if we burn natural gas out west, there's an issue. So I texted that out. Enough. Enough is enough. There is no blessed way that Albertans are going to go freeze to death in the goddamn dark because we can't get our energy policies back together. Moreover, people need our stuff. They want our stuff. When I'm speaking to the Consulate General of India, they want Alberta energy. How do we get it to you? I went over to Germany. Garth Roswell and I were part of a trip, and we were invited by the German government to go over there. There was him, myself, there was a lady from Ontario. She's an NDP. That's okay, she's from Ontario. So she was on the trip with us. We had one Republican senator, and the rest of the senators were Democrats. And there was I think it was about 10 or 12 of us that were on this trip. And we were invited by the German government to go over and look at their great energy transition file. So I brought flags with me. Everywhere I went, I had a little Alberta flag. Plaque it on the table, and before we got going in these meetings, I explained what Alberta was, talked about our energy sector, talked about our hydrogen file, talked about our environmental plan and what we were to the nation and what we could be to the world. Oh, and the fact that, you know, 63% of the energy the U.S. gets from oil, about 54% of that comes directly from my province. Oh, and by the way, the natural gas imports that the U.S. gets, yeah, 99.8% comes from my province. We do that. 365, 7 days a year, no problem. Like, we do it nonstop, 24 hours a day. You don't hear about big problems. You don't hear about strikes and protests and energy insecurity. Nothing that isn't being caused by policymakers. Everything else is there. We literally have the resources, the assets, and the wherewithal to do it. So we're over in Germany, we're having these questions. Well, firstly, I asked, well, actually I think it was Garth that asked, how much does it cost you per kilowatt hour for electricity right now? 40 cents. 40 cents. Wow. So you're going to phase out all your nuclear? Yep. You have any problems with that in the last 30 years? Nope. Okay, so that's a policy decision. Yep. Where are you going with this? What's clean and green to you guys? Well, it has to be solar and wind. Really? Okay, only solar and wind. Yeah, but we like hydrogen too. Oh, okay. And what are you doing with the hydrogen? Well, we have to make it from water, fresh water. Oh, that's stuff I grow crops and feed and water people with? Yep, that's good. Okay. What happens if people can't afford it? Who's gonna help them make this conversion? Well, the government will pay for it. Okay, so who's the government? Now this is the cool part, right? Where the first interaction we're having is with the consulting group. The consulting group that helps with policy to feed into 3 different levels of government. The policy group is made up, and no offense to any millennials out in the crowd, a bunch of 30-year-olds who have never lived through anything else other than a really kind of safe, secure area, right? So when they're talking about this, it's a little bit out there. What do you do with vehicles? Well, everyone can ride bicycles. Oh, okay. How do you take your kids to school? Well, they can sit in the basket. Oh, yeah. My son... Okay. So that's what you guys are going to do. Yeah, what happens if people don't go along with it? We're going to punish them. Oh, you're going to punish them with policy. Okay. So we're asking these questions, and at the start, the folks they were from the lefter side of the crowd. They were looking at us a little cockeyed and looking at us a bit funny. We kept asking these questions. The next time I was sitting with the federal minister of the federal government, they're talking about their energy policy. They had a brilliant young female engineer, and they're talking about the transportation policy. And now a technical person's in the room, not a policymaker. I started pushing and asking what their percentage of failure is, how this is going to work, how they have to displace 50 to 60% of their ridership to push more people on their trains. And if anyone's been over there, I mean, Germans are awesome at engineering. Wow. Like the stuff they put in place, I get off the plane, walk across, my bag's right there, up front on a train, and I'm at my hotel. Right? There's no messing around. So the fact that everyone is, in my opinion, already using the bicycle lanes, already doing all those things, they're going to increase ridership that much more. And I'm going, how is this going to work? She goes, well, actually, we're not going to get our numbers. Well, now the politicians' chin at the front of the table is kind of going in disbelief. The technical person and I are talking. The consultant was the one that started jumping in over top and trying to talk over the technical person about, oh, no, that's not right. And she's going, no, that's right. And we're having these open conversations now, and the conversations I was having wasn't with Germany. The conversation I was really having was with my US colleagues that are the Democratic senators. So that's the play. When we go to Alberta, I'm having these conversations with others because that's where they're leaning and looking in towards, is those policies. So that was the federal side. Then we go over to ThyssenKrupp. Has anyone ever heard of ThyssenKrupp? You take in an elevator, take a look at it. They produce high quality steel, been around forever, have a bunch of different industries and everything else. And the other thing I've noticed through my career building pipelines and everything else, I know when I go into a room, and it's no different than this room, I am not the smartest person in the crowd. So when I go in, I'm not afraid to know. I'm just that farm kid from God's country that'll throw his hand up and go, you stopped there? I kind of missed that part. You want to go back? Because I'm not quite getting her. Would you mind repeating that for me? And it's pretty disarming for most folks if I kind of, figuratively throw on the coveralls and have the Timothy seat out, and you're just kind of asking a nice question, right? So the guy from ThyssenKrupp is walking through their steel-making process and how they use coking coal. So it's going to be the really good metallurgical coal. And it has a really good British thermal element that comes with it. And also when you're making steel, the carbon comes for free. So you need carbon in the steel-making process. And then he goes over to the new version. They're going to make everything from a hydrogen furnace. So the hydrogen furnace does not get the material hot enough, it only gets to a plastic state, so then they have to kick it up again, and they're going to use electricity to bring it up to the molten state, and they're not getting the carbon for free. So he's showing this really simple diagram on the wall, and hold on a second, is this accurate? No, you're not supposed to interrupt presentations, but I couldn't help it. I'm going, is that accurate? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, have you ever done this before? Nope, first time we're ever going to do it. And I'm going, well, you're going to have some bad batches of steel. No, we will not have bad batches of steel. Sure you will. I said, have you ever seen any facility? And I says, no, disregard to what you guys do. I said, it's the same on our side of the pond. It doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have bad batches of steel until you get the process figured out. I said, are you getting any other additional, carbon? Where are you getting your carbon from? Well, we're going to have to supplement that. Okay, cool. I said, but the heat equivalency. I said, right now what I'm looking at on the wall, you need 15 to maybe 30 times more energy than what you're consuming now. I said, is that accurate? And he goes, yeah. The policy makers around the room, no word of a lie, they're pivoting their heads because we just heard of all the issues and the challenges they were going to have in their transportation, where they're going to get all this electricity, how people got to shut off their lights, how they can't have hot water, how they have to turn down the thermostats, how they're going to do all this because they got to save the environment. And the industry guys are going to have a 15 to 30 times, not percent, times uptick in energy costs. And the person sitting next to me is going, how did you come up with that so quick? I said, well, using thermal coal as an example, the metallurgical coal has up more BTUs than this, but it's 3-to-1 ratio for natural gas to get the same heat equivalency as what you do with your coal. I said, quickly looking at that, your hydrogen molecule, you've got one hydrogen, I'm already losing four carbon molecules from that. And then you're going to go further by using electrolysis to get your electricity to come up the other side. I said, you're taking fresh water or taking natural gas to do it. So I said, all of a sudden you've lost that. And to produce your electricity is less efficient than obviously nuclear or anything else. So I said, you're up to at least 20 to 30 times the energy. And then they turned to the guy and go, why are you guys doing this? Because we have to. Federal policy is dictating that we have to do this. And then the senator, that was the Republican senator, goes, well, how in the heck is this going to work out for your costs? He goes, it's not. We're going, well, how is your cost right now for production of steel? Now we start asking these questions, and the Dems are all turning their heads going, oh my gosh, now what's going on? The consulting guy, his eyes are about as big as saucer plates, and we're having this conversation as policymakers. And the German gent is starting to get defensive. I go, no. I said, this isn't on you. I said, this is for us. This is for us to see what you're doing here, and as policymakers to make sure we have the information so when we go back home that we can either do the great things you're doing or maybe learn from maybe some of the not so great things you're doing. So we have that, and he goes, well, yeah, right now, he says, China and India are eating our lunch in the market, but he says, this is what we're going to do. He says, we're going to propose it at COP28. All right, remember who we sent over to COP28? Yeah, Premier Smith and Minister Schultz for a reason. So let me get back to that. The guy says, what we're going to present at COP28 is we're going to have a buyers club. But he didn't say buyers club. He said an environmental group. We're going to have a green group all amongst ourselves, and we'll only trade with other green jurisdictions that have the same policies. So I'm looking at the folks in the room going, okay, so thank you for the information. We'd love to see the rest of your presentation carry on. We get outside and I'm going, does this make any sense? We're going to torpedo North America because Germany is having issues with their energy file. Does that make sense? Because the green definition, I said, I'm going to take fresh water out of my agriculture system, take it away from the folks that need it. I'm going to disregard all the advantage I have in the energy solution and all the practicality we have with it, and I'm going to torpedo our industry so we can go into a buyer's club to make ourselves equal with somebody who has an energy deficit. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound like good North America? So these are the seeds we started planting along the lines. Right? Yeah. I swear, and I'm kind of going because it was a cool story, so I'm hoping you're liking this because I hope I'm not chewing up the whole shot clock. So the next part is, so now we go for this supper, right? We're sitting down with this supper, and Michael Cruz is a gentleman that walked us through the Bouchard, or Buchenstadt, or Reichstadt, or whatever, which the new version is. And they literally over there, they've got the traffic light party. So you've got the green, the yellow, and the red parties came together to form a coalition government. But at least they're open and transparent about it. It's not like, you know, Thelma and Louise or Jagmeet and Trudeau, whichever one you call it. You know, side pack. But at least this one's in the open. So Michael was a pretty neat guy. He's talking about how tenuous this relationship is and how the policies are kind of an issue and a challenge, but they have to manage this so nicely. We sit down for supper. Michael's kind of got it. I'm sitting across the table from this other guy from the Green Party, a couple of US bureaucrats, and then this other blonde lady comes in and sits to the right of me. So I'm like, hey, how are you? Good. Okay, good. We're good. Michael sees this, he gets up, he walks over, says something in German to her, they're going back and forth. I'm thinking, okay, well that's pretty interesting. You ever heard of the terms hall sex? You know, yeah, exactly. So they're kind of, not to the physical sense, just figuratively with the language. So they're literally like, at each other. I turned to Michael and I kind of give him one of these, he goes, that's the leader of the Green Party. I told her not to throw me under the bus because we're actually supposed to be in the same team here tonight. I'm like, okay. The next 45 minutes, I'm having conversations with this lady about what Alberta's doing, how we're not Berlin, how our temperatures are different, how we're actually the same as Siberia, actually, when you look at the weather. All of the attributes and everything that we have going on, what we're doing with our hydrogen file, how we mapped out our whole program, how we're working on the agriculture. And she keeps going, oh, and the other thing she said is, do you know Rachel Notley? Not really. But she knew her, she didn't know our premier, but she knew Rachel right off the hop, which is wild. Yeah. So, there's that. Finally, after about 45 minutes of this, I am absolutely making no headway. This individual is telling me of how the carbon pricing is good. I've already told her what we're doing. There's some pitfalls. That's not good. You need wind and solar, and you can't use your hydrogen from your natural gas. And finally I said, you know, let me just, with all due respect, I said, I don't know that we're going to agree on a bunch of things, but here's some things you have to understand. This is my first time to Berlin, so let me walk you through what it took me to get here. Jumped on a plane, I flew for 4.5 hours to get out of my own country, and we took the short way. There was another hour we're over flying Iceland, another hour and change over top of the Atlantic, and I said, once we hit the coastline of the Netherlands, it was 45 minutes and I'm in Berlin. So I said, a little bit of a size difference. So we're sitting on the 4th largest known oil deposit on the planet. No kids have to go and fight and die in the Middle East for it. It's sitting right there, 223 trillion. You know, I go through the numbers, talk about our ag sector, talk about everything else. I said, here the other thing, by the way. Oh yeah, our biggest polluter is forest fires. 64% of those were started by people accidentally or otherwise, causing the forest fires. And I said, we burnt off the size of Switzerland this summer. And by the way, still 62% of my province is forested. So quite frankly, if you were sitting as Germany and all the stuff we have, we've got 4.5 million people, you've got 85 million, my province is twice the size of your country. If we were sitting, if Germany was sitting all the assets that we have, do you think we'd have a conversation about windmills and solar panels right now? Mic drop. So she kind of looked at her toes. I said, I can't wait for our premier to meet you in COP28, and I hope you ask her about our environmental plan and our hydrogen file. And I said, it's been a pleasure talking to you right now. And I said, I think I'm going to go talk to Michael for a second. So I walked over to Michael. I said, I got to shake your hand again. And we're by that coat rack, and again, very formal, you know, German member of parliament. I said, brother, I didn't realize how tenuous your relationship is. Well done. I reach out my hand to shake his hand and tell him, like, this is something. I said, I'll never get back this part of my life again by sitting there. And he goes, she's freaking crazy. I'm going, really? He goes, yeah, she wants to push out industry. They're pushing all these things. He says, we're trying to balance it. He says, there's no compromising. All these things it was like I popped a blister. And I said, partner, I said, let's keep in touch, because honestly, I think Alberta's got the solution for you. The other thing that came up, yeah, give that up. The other was that 30% probability of failure. So we're meeting with the energy minister of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is like Alberta, Germany version. Like they've got all the industries, they've got all the technical colleges and universities, and they're like the powerhouse in that area. And we're sitting across, planted flag. So that was on the table first, we were sitting down. And then I had some pins, so next thing you know, they're putting my pins on it, which, you know, says strong and free, Alberta, yeah, on their pins. And our flag's on the table. And we're talking about these challenges and what they're doing through policy. And I said, okay, 30% chance of failure. And they're flipping to the slide. Yep, I'm kind of interrupting a bit, but we've got a really good rapport going. And I said, so let me put this in context. I'm going to jump on that train tomorrow. I'm going to leave Essen. Going to whip into Berlin. That thing's whipping along at 200 kilometers an hour. Oh, by the way, it's a Bombardier train, which is really cool. So we're going to whip along this Canadian-made train, and we're going to whip over there, and I said, and there's a 30% chance that this thing is going to be in a smoking pile, a heap of rubble on the side of the right-of-way. Because I got a 30% chance of failure before getting there. You want to buy the ticket and sit next to me? And he kind of looks at me and goes, I said, well, who's figuring out your problem? Someone else, others. It was always by others. There was no one person in those rooms that knew the thing that was solved. But God bless them, they got head down, they're going for it. When I took Julie, she's the Republican, or the Democratic senator from Chicago, Illinois, we end up at one of these lignite mines. So that basically it's dirty coal, it's brown coal, it's not the stuff we wouldn't even dig it out of the ground. But they have to use it over there. And they're going to keep running their coal productions for at least 2030. Oh yeah. And there was a couple areas where they had to actually knock down windmills to get to the coal that was underneath it. So that was kind of interesting. But they are planning where to put their solar panels and everything else. They're going to put them in these corridor things. So these environmental corridors is what I call them. So it's the same concept when we're talking about economic corridors and our policy and energy. We got to start putting these things in the right places. So they're doing that. So that was bonus. All right, so we got the same thing, knocking down windmills to get to the coal. So I come wheeling off the side of this thing. There's this nice vista, and it's beautiful. You got this nice pull up over the side, 38 square kilometers of open pit, 200 meters deep. Beautiful bucket wheels running, nice conventional. You've got these conveyor lines going, big steam, big plume going in the air because it's about 50, 60% moisture in this stuff, if not 70. And you've got all these earth moving equipment, everything's going. And I jump off this thing, and it's like, isn't this gorgeous? Julie's right behind me. She's going, what? And I go, well, you must love this, Julie. Like, look at this. This is what you want, isn't it? She goes, no, we want to stop mining and stop production of coal and all these things. We want to go to electric. And I'm going, electric? Where do you think you're getting the materials to make the electric stuff you want? I said, this is easy. I said, we're just digging up dirt here. I said, you need 10 times the amount of mines right here of this size to get half of the stuff that you're looking for your EV future. She didn't realize. A lot of folks that are making these policy decisions is tugging on your heartstrings, is doing all that, but they don't understand. So one of the things that you got to do is just be yourself. Understand your industry and talk about all the good things we're doing. Don't try to change their minds. Just tell them what's going on. Let them plant the breadcrumbs so they can do that. So having these conversations with these folks at the end of the trip, They were asking the same questions that Garth and I were up front. And coming away from there, we've made some really good friends, we've changed some minds, and I thought I caused an international incident with, dealing with the Green Party. But we had a gentleman that runs the Transatlantic Corporation, so basically it's Germany's extension for offshore arms. And it was started, the whole transatlantic bridge concept was started back after World War II. So instead of tossing lead downrange in Europe, we thought, hey, why don't we tie our economies together? It was the Marshall Plan, all that. So we've had these communications for years. And even the US Embassy, when we were there, they were talking about resilience and adaptability. So this is the Biden administration not pushing a huge green narrative, talking about resilience and adaptability. Building structures and things that'll last, talking about being adaptable when you do it. So we get this call from the German consulate. They call us up and say, hey, this guy's coming over. Can you arrange a meeting with the Premier? Now, if you understand anything about German folks, they plan things out well in advance. And anything that has to do with dignitaries and protocols, it's well in advance. The consulate was apologetic, like, this is only 3 weeks ago, can you do something? Oh yeah, I'm going, no problem. So I'm like that little duck where my feet are just going underneath the surface, and I'm just cool as a cucumber. Oh yeah, no problem, we'll make this happen, no problem. So now we're scrambling, we've got Premier schedule and everything else. I'm going, this is really good, So we got this gentleman to come over, and we had a quick meeting with him. He asked us a bunch of information on our environmental file. So firstly, the world thinks that our Indigenous First Nations people are 100% against us. They're not. Under the economic corridor model, we've managed to do that. We've got the AIOC. We've done a ton of things here, lots of really goodwill in building the province the way it should, and quite arguably, I would say, too, a lot of the stuff that's kept us apart for years, park that, start over, let's start building and do it on what it was. And Treaty 6 in my area couldn't have a better symbolism than that. It's two people shaking hands. And that's what I go back to in our area. It's about making a deal and keeping it and doing the right thing for everybody, right? So that's kind of where the concept was there. He asked about the environmental things, was very surprised, heard about the hydrogen file, was very surprised, heard about the volumes, and then he kept asking, well, how can you get it to us? I said, don't worry about that. You let us worry about how to get it to you. You just tell me how much you need and when, and we'll figure it out from there. So we go for a steak after this, a steak, by the way, absolutely a steak. And Premier's assigned me to be point on this to figure out how to get energy over to Europe, so that's the deal that we're working on. So we're sitting down for a steak and we're having a really good conversation now, and he goes, he says, my first time ever to Alberta, he says, of all the places in the world I've been to, and we didn't send a big delegation for him to meet him at the airport, put that in the back of your mind. He goes, I have never been made to feel more welcome in any place than right here. He says, I'm getting excited, like, there's possibilities, there's things that we can do. He says, and you guys are, I said, we're kind of cowboy. I said, honestly, well, I'm not the most polished politician, but what we'll have is actual practical conversations, and we can do something, we'll work on the challenges, we'll get her done. I said, that's what we do here. And I said, and again, it's, it means a lot to me. So we met the next day down in Calgary with 2 other ministers, and again, at the end, he pulls me in, and we're having this conversation about how we can work together across the pond. He says, you gotta come over to Germany. You have to talk to our media. They have to see this for themselves. They gotta talk to somebody from Alberta. He says, because they're not getting that message. He says, and I'm seeing this. It's not just you. We've checked with other people in industry while we're here. It's the same thing. Like, Alberta's the place where things happen. And he says, but this is going to be tough. And I kind of pulled him in and said, hey, Mike, I said, if it was easy, somebody else would be doing it for way less money than you and I, right? So let's just make it happen. And that's what we have. So now we're literally working on that file, same as the Indian file with India itself. India does not like Justin Trudeau. They literally punted him out of the country. Now riddle me this, Batman. Why is it that Saskatchewan and Alberta can go over to India, and we're over there literally right now at their oil show? Why are we welcome there? Right? You can't fake authenticity. You can't fake authenticity. Coming back to my colleagues that I mentioned there. When we represent and carry ourselves, that's what we've got to do. So did you hear we opened up the most recent foreign trade office? Did you hear about that this week? Yeah, it's in Ottawa. If we're not not at the dance, we're not able to do these things. If we can't talk to our consulate generals, if we're not talking to the folks that represent us, this is what happens. And we've been sitting back for too long. And believe it or not, I got a lot of these lessons from my colleagues in Quebec. The MLAs from Quebec, we get along like peanut butter and friggin' jelly. Honestly, we do. It's all that other federal stuff and the conjecture that goes back and forth. So what I'm here to tell you is a couple little stories, because that's all I am, is just a farm boy, a storyteller, to give you some hope. And this is what happens when we just take the initiative, and we step up, and we're not afraid to be ourselves. Albertans should never hold their heads in shame for what we've done in our past or history. We learn from our mistakes, we admit them. Premier Ralph Klein showed us all that. We made some mistakes, he admitted. And we've got a premier right now that, God bless her, she took the file I was working on, those economic corridors where, the other administration really wasn't listening to it. She ended up taking that, and not only did she put it in transportation and economic corridors, she literally made a ministry for it, but there's 10 other ministries that have that baked in. And it basically encapsulates everything I'm talking about here tonight. It's talking about creating pathways, creating conduits, not only within our own country, but across the states, pulling that in together and across the world.
Here, here.
Now, I heard some criticisms tonight, we're bad communicators. Yep, duly charged. And part of it is, we're really good at the ground game. The other teams already encapsulated the air war, we gotta figure out how to do that, but we're good at the ground game. What we want to try to do is to have these things and really appreciate you guys taking the initiative, having these monthly town halls to get it out there. We want to work with you, everybody in this room, to figure out how we get the information that you need. So we can do that. We'll do that through the CA presidents. We'll do that through the boards. We'll do that for our friends through the alternate media that haven't been bought and paid for. Did I say that out loud? Yes, we'll keep doing that, but we'll try to get out these little messages. And if you're looking for some big splashy thing right now, it's not. It's hurry up and wait. We've got some very key policies we brought out. We're not going to be running out there as much as the movie theater thing is cool with big marquee lights. There's a certain thing, an attribute to what we're doing here. You have to understand, as Alberta, Saskatchewan held the line when we turned NDP. They were like literally holding the line out there. We managed to get our act together as a province and come back to it. So you've got two outliers in the country right now. And the other side is talking about how we're trying to divide and separate the country. Quite the contrary. We're the ones trying to pull it back together, to remember who we are, to remember where our place is. And by the way, other people like it. We would never have seen as much migration from across the country of Canadians moving to Alberta unless we had that. So let's keep going. There's going to be a ton of wedge issues they can use against us. The biggest thing, the conservative, the whole movement on that side, the biggest enemy is us. Look to the left of you and look to the right of you. It's us. How? Great question. I've been married 21 years. Beautiful lady. She's got a hard head. God bless her, she needs one to be living with a guy like me. And she challenges me and I challenge her, and we have robust dialogue and everything else. And I've been married for 21 years. I don't know that I could say the same thing as I probably could in the room about you folks. I think everybody in this room, if you look at conservatives, we probably get along with about 80%. 80% of the stuff that we have, we probably agree to that. It's the 20% we'll fight to the friggin' death over and fracture our movement. Or we get frustrated because it's not happening fast enough, or it's going too fast, or that's the stuff. And if I'm on the other side, I'll feed that monkey all day long and I'll get you all fighting amongst each other. And guess what? That's what they do. And do you think they play fair? Nope. As an example, and I really appreciate the CA president saying this earlier, for the 6 of you who are recording this that want to take it to Rachel, well, good luck in her next job, by the way. The ones to take it to the NDP party. I was literally out in my area, 2.5-hour town hall, 80 people in little old Evansburg at the time. Little old Evansburg. 2.5-hour conversation. I talked about one part on the pension plan where we're going to have to do some arm twisting when we get into negotiations with feds. They took a 12-second clip of a 2.5-hour presentation. The next day on Twitter was Rachel Notley. Not that she wrote it. Oh, maybe she did. I don't know. But someone under her handle on Twitter, Rachel Notley, wrote, "See, UCP Chief Government Whip admits arm twisting is part of the UCP's plan when it comes to the pension." Oh, I've got this other really cool trick too. I'm invisible. I'm 6'2", not 235 actually today. So 230, but it's been a long drive. 235. I've been to presentations where we talk. I've literally talked in front of the media in my first term, just coming out of COVID, talking about launching the air show, talking about all the things that we're doing on the aerospace file, talking about all the diversity that we're pouring into the marketplace and what we're doing for the local area. I had literally the head of Edmonton International Airports and the mayor of Sturgeon County thank me for all the work the MLA did. And I'm thinking, 10 minutes, this is awesome. This interviewer is going back and forth, he's got a camera, I'm going, right on. Find some good news stories. I'm gonna get some good headwinds or some tailwinds here on this one. The next day, I wasn't even there in the newspaper. So when you folks get frustrated that we're not getting the message out, but I talk about cheesies and watching cartoons, well, that made national news. So we're gonna need your help on these files. And with that, it's the grassroots communication that goes back and forth. And with that part, I really want to find out what matters to you. So usually I would have a Q&A session. I think we'll probably book this till the end, let the other presenters get in place. But there's everything. If I can talk to you about it, I will. If I don't know, I'll get back to you. And you have to understand if I can't talk to you, it's because of one of those other items. We're playing chess here too, folks. So, you know, it's not only can't have the poker card sitting on your forehead. There's other things that we're involved with that we literally swore to confidence that we can't talk to you about. It doesn't mean we're not working on some things. If you trust us, you're gonna have to give us a little bit of trust and some length to do the right thing too, because we're in it for the long haul. We can't mess up the next election, let alone the next 3 or 4. And I'm so happy that I see so many folks in Calgary here energized, because blue's my favorite color.
One more time for Shane Getson. I, on the other hand, don't have these problems saying things. And I tend not to hold back. I think that there are roles for everyone to play, and I think that out here in this room right now, so many of you want to always be involved, and that's the key. I remember before the election how many conversations I had with many of you that said, but the media won't play fair. And I said, well, don't talk to the media. I said, we're gonna win this one conversation at a time, one door at a time, one person at a time, and we won. And I have to admit, in Calgary Lougheed, right, there's 6,500 NDP votes and there was 100 signs. So they have a system, and we have a system. And our system is better than their system because we're reinvigorating it, and we're working with it, and we're going to develop it so that it is perfect. And by that I mean we're going to listen, we're going to communicate, we're going to argue, we're going to disagree, and we're going to come out ahead, because that's what it takes. That 80% of agreement that we have on issues, we can win with that. The other 20, we'll have to have some more dialogue, see where we're at, maybe put a pin in some of them. Our next speaker is amazing. He's an economist, he's young, he has 1 million followers or listeners to his podcast every month, and he's from Lloydminster. Yeah, so it's just proof that social media will work absolutely everywhere, because it's near my hometown in Vermilion, so there are people that will tune in. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Calgary welcome to Tanner Hnidey.